Okay, so we've been talking about how can you preserve a fossil, and now we want to talk about imprints of hard parts. So let's pretend that you have a fossil that is shaped like a box. So that's a very easy fossil to make. Now I can tell you that there were no organisms that look like boxes, but let's just say, for example, that this is a fossil box. So what's going to happen is it's going to get buried. So now it's buried under all of this sediment, okay, and now this hardens around it. And now let's say that for some reason that this original organism dissolves. So the box goes away. So what you've got now is a hole in this rock here. Now let's say that erosion occurs, and so all of this soil and sediment and rock up here, it erodes down and it exposes this hole that is in this rock. Well, that then would be a external mold of the original organism. Now what then would be a internal mold of this organism? Okay, so in this case, what could happen is that, let's say that sediment could get into that hole, and then it could solidify so that the inside of the box now has stuff inside of it. Now let's say that erosion occurs and it takes away all of the material that surrounded the box. And it also took away the box itself, so that all that you've got is the original material that was inside the box. Well, that is going to give, that's going to be an internal mold. It will tell you what the inside of the box looked like. Okay, so how could we actually get the original box back? So now that we have the internal mold, the internal mold of this thing, we could then take that and we could put it in some kind of a plaster and surround it, okay, and then open it up and then peel off the outside part of it. Well, that outside part of it would give you a cast of what the original inside of the box looked like. We could also do the same thing to the outside of the box, and we could get a cast of what the outside of the box used to look like as well by using this. So those are, again, some other kinds of fossils that you could have. Okay, some other ways of preserving material is freezing it. So here's a mastodon, and so what's happened to it is maybe it got stuck in some ice and it froze to death. And again, it got covered up by snow or something. And so it's frozen. And so we can actually thaw this thing out, and we could open it up, we could dissect it, and we could even look in its stomach to see what its last meal was before it died. So that's the original organism, it's just it's been frozen. Same thing for the next one, desiccation. So in this case, what you got is a lizard that was out in the middle of a desert, and it died and it got dried out. So all the water got dried out of that organism. And so that is going to be the original organism minus the water. Then you also have encasement in amber or tar. So here is some kind of a mosquito that landed on, let's say, a pine tree, and then the sap from the pine tree covered up the insect. Then the sap hardened into amber, and so now we have the original organism inside of that amber. If you recall the movie Jurassic Park, what they did theoretically was that they drilled into the amber, drilled into the organism, drilled into the blood that was in this mosquito, pulled it out, pulled out its DNA, and then from that DNA they remade dinosaurs. Now we don't think that that's really possible, but because the DNA would be too degraded. But it is an interesting idea. You could also have encasement in tar, and this has happened at the La Brea tar pits, where you have some kind of animal that got stuck in the tar and it died and then got covered up by more tar. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how is life organized.